I don't know how Breanna Stewart's getting more votes than Caitlin Clark. I don't understand what's going on here. This whole list is starting to look a little bit fishy already. Already, it seems like there's some agenda.
The Indiana Fever's general manager must be drowning in regret right about now. What makes this even more painful is that the entire basketball universe is bearing witness to this disaster as it unfolds in excruciating slow motion.
Last season, this is what I'm talking about. There's an agenda behind all of this. It's weird, and it's blatantly obvious what is going on. And the disrespect is out of this world. The only reason Paige Beckers is making all this money and everybody done got paid is because of the cash cow came in and put the league on her back and saved everything. Let's be clear here. I don't understand why they're trying to push all these other people to the forefront. No other professional league does this, where they have this pity party for all the other players to make everybody feel good about themselves. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
This wasn't some minor misstep or temporary setback that could be quietly buried and forgotten by a capable front office. We're watching a complete organizational collapse, a catastrophe that's been festering behind the scenes for months before erupting spectacularly into public view for every fan, analyst, and rival executive to witness firsthand. The list itself is genuinely mortifying, truly humiliating. People can debate other snubs all they want, but this particular embarrassment stands alone. The most maddening aspect? The very individuals tasked with safeguarding the franchise and exercising sound judgment were busy disrespecting the most significant player this organization has ever had or likely ever will have. The consequences of that stunning arrogance are now crashing down directly on the GM, with zero escape routes and absolutely no credible explanations remaining, particularly when your cornerstone player represents the most transformative force women's basketball has witnessed in an entire generation. Consider the reality here. This player independently fills arenas everywhere she goes, shattering attendance records consistently. She drives television viewership to unprecedented heights that have network executives celebrating wildly. She elevates the entire league's profile nationally every time she sets foot on the court. When you possess that caliber of generational talent, disrespecting and undermining her doesn't end without severe repercussions. The passionate fan base, the team's true foundation, has been desperately sounding alarms about the organization's mishandling of Caitlin Clark for months. Every arrogantly dismissed warning, every legitimate concern carelessly waved away, every puzzling decision that left supporters bewildered, has circled back to haunt them in the most excruciating and visible manner possible. This represents the inevitable outcome when leadership prioritizes protecting its own pride over serving its star player. This predictable result explains precisely why instant regret is slamming the Indiana Fever GM like a runaway train, and why absolutely nobody paying genuine attention feels even slightly shocked by how spectacularly this embarrassing mess has imploded. Because let's be absolutely clear, this transcends one isolated blunder or single unfortunate day. This reflects something far more troubling, a deeply embedded pattern of disrespect the organization permitted to grow and spread, while devoted fans screamed warnings that something was fundamentally broken internally. The evidence exists everywhere. The documentation is readily available. The chronology reveals the complete, undeniable truth. Now the GM sits alone confronting every choice that was made, while Caitlin Clark simply continued appearing, performing brilliantly, night after night, repeatedly disappointed by the very people obligated to support her unconditionally from the beginning. Share your perspective in the comments. I genuinely want to hear what you're thinking. This is precisely where the discussion shifts significantly, addressing something many have privately considered, but few mainstream voices dare articulate publicly. What's being highlighted here extends far beyond questionable roster decisions or debatable coaching choices. It's considerably larger. A much bigger and frankly more uncomfortable dialogue has been simmering beneath the surface throughout this league recently. It revolves around three essential concepts: recognition, credit, and who actually built this unprecedented explosion of WNBA popularity. The concrete financial reality of what's happened to player compensation across the board, to enormous new broadcasting agreements, and to the league's overall visibility since Caitlin Clark's arrival isn't subjective opinion, it's documented fact. It's quantifiable through revenue and ratings, completely impossible to dispute honestly. Yet somehow, almost incredibly, the individual most responsible for this positive transformation keeps getting sidelined, diminished, or disregarded, while numerous others happily collect benefits her unique presence created initially. Understand this isn't trivial. It's a fundamental fairness and respect issue this league must confront immediately before the damage becomes permanent.
No way This is not unrivaled 3-on-3. Now, if this was unrivaled 3-on-3 where she could play bully ball, she could back people down from the 3-point line and do all of that, this is a different conversation. There's no way you watch her in 5-on-5 and you think she's the best point guard in the whole league. No way. There's no way you think she's better than Caitlin Clark. There's no way. There's literally no way. This is an agenda. This is hate. It just is what it is. There's no way 73% of these GMs should have been picking Chelsea.
The question everyone observing this situation must grapple with now is deeply uncomfortable, but absolutely necessary. How does an organization, or indeed an entire league, permit the one player who filled every seat, skyrocketed ratings, secured major contracts, and single-handedly elevated every paycheck in the building to be treated as anything less than the undisputed celebrated centerpiece of everything? Why does it persistently feel like there's a coordinated, almost intentional effort to distribute credit as broadly and evenly as possible, even when actual contributions were dramatically unequal? And perhaps the real stinger? Why are those who benefited most from this massive surge of attention and revenue seemingly the slowest to publicly acknowledge its true source? The uncomfortable answer likely involves two factors: internal politics and external optics. When one player's influence is so overwhelmingly dominant, it makes virtually everyone else appear like supporting cast members by comparison. Institutional pressure naturally emerges to rebalance the narrative, making the story feel more collective than reality actually reflects. It protects delicate egos, helps manage complex player-team relationships, and theoretically prevents locker room fracturing along bitter resentment lines. But here's what it also accomplishes. And this matters critically. It gaslights millions of fans who witnessed everything firsthand, people who purchased tickets and merchandise and tuned in for one specific reason only. You cannot erase what people saw directly, and the obvious attempt to do exactly that is precisely why this fan base remains so energized, so activated, and so completely unwilling to let this conversation quietly fade away. Right on schedule, we've reached what might be the single most infuriating chapter of this entire saga. This no longer concerns just one organization making poor choices privately. This involves a public selection process, a published list, a set of decisions presented before the entire world that almost immediately revealed itself for what it truly was. We're discussing a snub so obvious, so incredibly tone-deaf, and so fundamentally indefensible with any rational argument that even casual observers with no particular investment in Caitlin Clark specifically looked at it and felt genuinely embarrassed for those responsible for creating it. When a list supposedly represents the best, most impactful, and most deserving individuals in a sport, and the one person who independently moved the needle further and faster than anyone in league history is conspicuously absent from positions she clearly deserves, you must call it what it is. That's not an oversight. That's a deliberate, calculated act of disrespect, a statement being broadcast, and it's a statement absolutely everyone with access to television or internet can see through completely. This wasn't accidental, it felt intentional. The burning question in every viewer's mind at this juncture must be this: who exactly do these selections serve, and what possible criteria could justify these bewildering conclusions? How do you construct a list meant to recognize excellence and historic achievement and somehow produce a final result, leaving the most discussed, most viewed, and most commercially impactful player in the entire league visibly and insultingly underrepresented? And here's perhaps the most damaging question striking at the league's foundational authority. If the people making these high-stakes decisions are this profoundly disconnected from what the public actually observes, values, and spends money supporting, what does that reveal about the credibility of every recognition, every award, and every decision this league makes moving forward? That answer is one WNBA decision-makers absolutely won't want hearing, but desperately need understanding. When institutional politics, personal agendas, and misguided desires to spread recognition like participation trophies start overriding clear, undeniable merit and measurable, real-world impact, the entire system loses all credibility with the audience it depends upon most. Fans aren't naive, they aren't foolish. They watch every game, track every statistic, see the sold-out arenas, and know precisely what they witnessed throughout a full season. When what they witness directly doesn't align with official records, trust collapses instantly. Once that sacred trust between league and fan base vanishes, no amount of corporate rebranding or carefully crafted press releases ever restores it. The damage is permanent. This is where debate stops concerning subjective opinions and starts involving objective reality. What's being challenged strikes directly at how Caitlin Clark is being evaluated by people supposedly the most qualified expert talent judges in this entire league. We're not discussing casual fans casting website votes or social media polls flooded by passionate, organized supporters. We're discussing league general managers, people paid substantial salaries to evaluate professional basketball talent at the absolute highest level, reaching a conclusion about the best point guard that a massive portion of the basketball-watching public finds completely disconnected from what's actually transpired on the court, repeatedly. The straightforward but deeply uncomfortable question everyone watching must consider now is this: how much weight should a GM poll actually carry when results so blatantly contradict everything else? We're referencing everything: the advanced analytics, the explosive viewership numbers, the record-breaking attendance figures, and the simple eye test have been screaming all season long. Is it remotely plausible that this many high-level decision-makers inside the league all watched identical games as everyone else and genuinely arrived at this conclusion purely based on basketball merit? If that critical question's answer carries even minimal doubt, then what exactly is driving these rankings, and why does the pattern of who benefits from these peculiar decisions consistently point in the same direction repeatedly? The answer more people are reluctantly reaching is one league leadership would strongly prefer avoiding publicly addressing, but the truth grows harder ignoring. When a voting or ranking process consistently produces results defying both overwhelming statistical evidence and widespread observable reality, and when those bizarre results consistently work against the identical player regardless of her court production, the most logical explanation isn't that every GM is seeing something brilliant the world is missing. The more logical explanation is that other factors beyond pure basketball evaluation, are influencing these outcomes. Agenda is a strong word, I recognize. But it's the word that fits perfectly when the gap between a player's actual performance and their official recognition becomes too wide and too consistent for any other explanation. Fans pointing this out aren't being irrational conspiracy theorists. They're simply following the evidence trail to its most logical conclusion and demanding someone with authority inside this league finally have the courage addressing it honestly and transparently. That's ultimately where this entire story lands. The Indiana Fever's front office, the league's top decision-makers, and absolutely everyone who participated in this clear disrespect pattern is now watching consequences unfold in the full public spotlight with absolutely nowhere remaining to hide. The truth is, Caitlin Clark never needed their validation proving what she is, because the sellout crowds, the record-shattering television ratings, and the completely transformed financial landscape of this entire league already did that for her, loud and clear. If you want staying ahead of every development in this unfolding story and getting the real unfiltered perspective, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video, because we're nowhere close to finished pulling back the curtain on everything happening behind the scenes inside this league.